This is Simple Joys, a hope story that heals. Every word is a piece of life. Every twist a hidden truth. Stay with us and let this story guide your heart. I was not hired to be seen. I was hired to appear and disappear like a door that opens itself. That night, he made sure everyone saw me. The ballroom was glass and gold, a lake of light where even the ice cubes looked expensive. Violins buzzed like bees in perfume. Waiters moved in lines so straight you could have measured stock charts with them. Beside me, the black sedan gleamed with the patience of a well-trained horse. Inside, the smell of leather and wintergreen polish clung to my sleeves. "Stay close," Mr. Blackwell had said when he stepped out earlier. A hand on the shoulder of someone more important than gravity. "If I snap, you appear." He snapped, not with fingers, he snapped with eyes first. To bits of ice cutting left, finding me by the door near the champagne wall. He lifted his chin the way men do in portraits, then curled one finger. I crossed. The marble, the click of my cheap shoes swallowed by the room. My tie was narrow and frayed in the back where no one could see. My shirt was white. My hands were clean. I kept one hand partly tucked into my jacket, shielding the envelope that held my son's program. Commencement, Friday 10 a.m. As if a piece of paper could be bruised. "Driver," he said before I arrived, not looking at me, talking instead to the cluster of men with lapel pins and women whose diamonds whispered, "Watch this." They laughed ahead of time, obedient. Double quotes. "Yes, sir," I said, stopping at the edge of his shadow. He held out his right foot, the one with the patent leather shoe that had its own spotlight. A smear so faint I'd missed it in the noon wash made. A pale crescent near the toe. A print of road dust kissed by rain. "What's that?" he asked me. Then the room. "What do I pay for?" "Gentlemen, what is the point of owning a driver if my shoes reflect anything but my face?" Someone made a sound that was almost a neigh. "I can take care of it, sir," I said softly. "If you'll allow me. Here. Now." He turned full toward me. "Yes. Here. Now. Kneel." It wasn't a request. It was a lever. He pulled it and watched to see which gears inside me were honest and which would strip. I knelt, because that was my job when he told me to. Not just to drive, but to stage the illusion of control. The marble was cold through my trousers. I took a clean cloth from my pocket, breathed on the smear, and rubbed until I could almost see his mouth moving in it. I did not look up. People do not like to be seen while they are being cruel. "Not with your breath," he said, savoring each word. "With your apology." I paused. "I'm sorry, sir." "Louder," he said. "Sir, I'm sorry," I said for the room. "There it is," a woman purred, and laughter lifted like steam. I finished the shoe. I rose. I stepped back into my invisibility. But he wasn't done. "Hold on," he said, and patted my cheek once slightly, but in front of eyes. "Let's give the man a round. He's done something useful. He clapped 3 times, and the obedient few offered their polished palms. While we're at it, tell us, what does a driver cost these days? He glanced around. 50, 60, 70 if you want one with English, a man near the bar said, glancing at my face like he was checking a mirror. Tell you what, Blackwell said, I'll give you something priceless, a lesson. He took to slow steps, guiding me, with the flat of his palm as if I were a chess piece. You scuffed my shoe, Evan, he said. He'd learned my name this year and used it like a talent. You scuffed it because you are careless. Do you know why you are careless? No, sir, I said, though I did know. I was thinking about my wife's appointment in the morning. I was thinking about whether our old gas heater would survive another winter. I was thinking about my son's graduation at 10 and how I would get off a shift. That ended at 9:45 if the night ran long. I was thinking the way poor men think in lists. You are careless, he said, because when a man is cheap, he is careless with everything, with time, with dignity, with other people's property. He spread his hand to the room. You want to be important? Start by being expensive. More laughter, more diamonds whispering. Sir, I began and stopped. I could taste metal in my mouth, a penny placed on my tongue by an invisible hand. The envelope against my ribs felt suddenly heavier, as if my son's future were made of lead. Speak up, he said, smiling for the phones he pretended not to notice. I'm sorry about the shoe. I said, it won't happen again. You're right, he said. It won't. He turned his wrist, and a security guard materialized from the edge of the room, where shadows do push-ups. The guard's suit was too tight across the shoulders the way new authority always is. Collect his badge, Blackwell said, almost bored. We're done here. Consider yourself redistributed. I felt the guard before I saw him, a presence like a door closing. He held out a hand. I reached into my jacket and took out my company badge, plastic, scratched. A photo where I still looked surprised to be employed, and placed it in his palm. When I withdrew my hand, I made sure the envelope remained where it was. I was not careless. You can keep your cloth, Blackwell said lightly, a souvenir. The guard moved his other hand toward my elbow, and I shifted a half step away to make it easy for him to touch nothing. I didn't trust my body not to break whatever touched it. Wait. A woman said someone whose dress cost more than my neighborhood. Make him apologize properly. To the shoe. A cluster of giggles. I'm serious. People love a show. Blackwell looked amused. He rolled the idea in his mouth like wine. For a heartbeat the room tilted toward cruelty, the way a stage light leans toward the villain. That's enough, a voice said, quieter than the violins. But it cut. The voice belonged to a woman with a pixie cut and a notebook peeking from a clutch. That looked wrong in a place like this. She was too plain to be there, and too alert not to be dangerous. Her eyes had the calm of someone who writes things down. Who invited you? Blackwell said without saying it. he said. And you are? Someone who hates boring endings, she said mildly. Let the man go. He measured her. Then he smiled the way men smile at paparazzi they think they own. Fine, he said. We have a big day tomorrow, anyway. He turned from me, like I was a window that had finally learned to be glass. The guard whose name tag read P. McKenna tilted his head toward a side exit. This way. Sir. Double quotes, sir. The smallest mercy in a room designed for big ones. I walked. As I did, the violins swelled again as if nothing had happened, and the laughter rethreaded itself through the night. My shoes did not click anymore. They softened into something between footsteps and apologies. The side corridor was narrow and perfumed with lilies trying not to die. The exit door yawned into a slice of rain that had been waiting patiently for us to open it. Outside, the city smelled clean and unforgiving. McKenna held the door with a flat hand. Up close. He was younger than the suit, freckles not yet muted by late nights. I'm sorry, he said. So low the rain almost took it. I saw the shoe. I've seen worse get a bonus. I nodded once. It's not the shoe, I said. He nodded back like he understood that too. You got somewhere to go. I have a bus pass, I said. And when I said it, I understood the arithmetic of my life in that sentence, the addition of ours, the subtraction of pride, the division of hope into neat slices. He hesitated, then he held out my badge, the plastic rectangle I had surrendered. You'll probably want this. For memories, I mean, keep it. I said gently, in case the next man needs it. His mouth quirked. I stepped into the rain. The hotel's awning sheltered a world of umbrellas that belonged to people who knew rain the way they knew taxes, as an inconvenience solved by professionals. Beyond the awning, the rain was democratic. I put my head into it and felt where I ended, and the night began. At the curb. The company car, a long black thing with ideas about royalty, waited under a valet's hand. Another driver, one of the pool men who floated like ghosts through the fleet, slid behind the wheel without looking at me. That was mercy too. I walked to the bus stop. The route map behind the scratched plastic had been updated so recently the ink still looked wet. My stop required a transfer and the patience of men who know how to wait. Without being noticed, the pixie-cut woman was already there. She stood under the bus sign as if she'd been printed with it, her clutch gone. A messenger bag on her shoulder that matched nothing. Up close, I could see the indifference in her clothes and the hunger in her eyes. A mismatch I'd only seen on ambitious people who forgot to dress their hunger. That was a performance, she said. I'm Maya. Evan. I said. Do you need a ride? She asked. I have a car that still thinks it's a bike. I have a bus pass. I said again, then softened it. Thank you. She studied my face, not like a stranger studies a stranger, but like a writer studies a sentence that might be a thesis. Then she nodded once to herself. You'll go to graduation tomorrow? Yes, I said, feeling the envelope like a warmth against my ribs, even if I have to walk. "What's his name?" she asked. "Adam." She lifted the corner of her mouth that wasn't a smile. "Good name." The bus exhaled to a stop. Old and faithful. The doors folded open like a book willing to be read. I climbed on. I sat near the back where shadows ride without paying. Through the wet window, I watched Maya lift her phone. Not to call, but to photograph the door I had just exited. She took one photo, then another. Then she turned the phone toward herself, typed with both thumbs, and disappeared into the rain like a paragraph that promised a page turn. The bus jolted. My hands were empty for the first time in hours. I took the envelope out and slid a finger under the flap, tracing my son's name where he'd written it as if the paper was skin and the ink a pulse. Alan Tran, in block letters that pretended not to be nervous. He'd left the program at breakfast, so I would have something to hold other than my worry. I pressed my forehead to the cool window and watched the city recede in small acts of forgetting, lit rooms becoming blurs. People becoming silhouettes. The hotel becoming a rumor. My apartment was to turns from the last stop. Up 3 flights whose stairs remembered knees. The hallway smelled like fried onions and resilience. Through the thin door, I could hear the television voice that kept my wife company when pain wouldn't. I fumbled my keys, the key ring with the tiny plastic baseball Adam had given me when he was 9, then remembered I no longer had a reason to keep them silent. I opened the door. The clatter sounded like breaking. "Evan." Leah's voice called from the couch, thin but with corners that still held me up. "You're early." "I'm on time," I said automatically, and then, because that was not an answer, we finished sooner. She sat up, and even that small movement pulled a shadow across her face. Leah is beautiful in the way oak trees are beautiful after storms. They lean differently, and you love them more. The scarf at her throat hid what pride wanted hidden. "How was it?" she asked, and then she saw my eyes. Because wives do not ask questions they do not already know the answers to. "It was," I said, and spread my hands, meaning it was over, it was inevitable. It was the kind of thing you expect from a man. Who names boats after himself? She reached for the remote and silenced the room. "Come here," she said, and I did, and I sat beside her, and her hand found my wrist and measured my pulse the way a nurse does, even when she's not in uniform. "What did he do?" she asked softly. "What he could," I said, "in front of people." Leah's jaw set, and I saw in her eyes the girl who had once told a teacher to stop calling on the boys with loud voices. "And what did you do?" "What I could," I said. "I didn't break." She exhaled, and it sounded like both grief and pride. "We'll be okay. We've been okay before," I said, smiling with one side of my mouth. She tapped the envelope. "Adam, tomorrow," I said, and the word lifted something inside me that had been refusing to stand. He's going to walk across a stage and forget how to keep his shoulders down. He's going to shake the dean's hand and pretend it's easy to be the first. We sat in the quiet that holds houses together. My phone a brick with a screen vibrated once. Against my thigh, a shy thing. I pulled it out. Unknown number. Are you available to work days? Courier. Citywide. Start tomorrow. $19. Reply Y. N. I stared at it. The math started itself in the back of my head. Bus fare, groceries, Leah's meds, July's rent that always arrived disguised as a test. I typed N because of the ceremony, then deleted it. I typed Y, then deleted that. I looked at Leah. Take it, she said, already reading me. We can be to places at once. That's why people invent phones. I won't miss his name. I said. You won't, she said. If we have to, we'll steal time. My phone vibrated again. This time, a different number. An email preview. Please confirm 10 a.m. attendance for Adam Tran. 2 guests registered. 2. Leah and me. I thought of the bus schedules. I thought of rain. I thought of the way time refuses to be negotiated with. When you are poor, I'll make it work. I said out loud, to the room and to the arithmetic. Evan. Leah said, look at me. I did. You are not less because a small man made you smaller in front of people who aren't brave enough to be alone, she said. You are not less because you have a bus pass and he has a driver he won't look at. You are not. Less because we count. We count better. I nodded. My throat felt like it had swallowed a key and didn't know which door it should open. I showered, letting the water draw its thin lines down my back until I could think again. I laid out my only good shirt. I ironed it with the patience of men who cannot afford to burn fabric. I set my alarm for a time that made morning look lazy. And then I lay in the dark listening to Leah breathe. And when sleep came, it brought the ballroom with it. The sound of clapping hands that applauded nothing. At 5:30, the city was blue and unmade. I brewed coffee that tasted like decisions. Leah took 3 sips and told me to stop staring. I kissed her forehead where the scarf didn't reach. I put the envelope inside my jacket again. The paper knew the way. The bus was late like it always is when you need it not to be. I stood with 3 other men and a woman whose scrubs said night had been unkind. We pretended not to know each other's stories. The bus arrived heavy with sleeplessness. I climbed on. Halfway downtown, my phone pulsed. It was a message from Maya. Maya. I'm running something. It's not the story you think. Call me if you want to say no. There was a link. I didn't tap it. Not yet. The bus hissed to a stop near the square, where the commencement banners hung like promises. I stepped off into a morning that smelled like wet brick and beginnings. I stood at the gate, long enough to hear the first names. I looked for Leah's scarf in the small crowd of mothers who pretended not to cry. I looked for my son's face jaw set the way mine sets when I'm pretending not to be afraid. I looked at my watch and measured whether pride could pay for time. It couldn't. But sometimes mercy does. Dad, Adam's voice. The miracle of syllables I didn't deserve. Dad. He was running because he still believed he could outrun everything. He wore a gown that made him look temporarily older, and a grin that made him younger again. "You're early," he said, breathless, and I laughed because that word had saved us before. "I'm on time," I said. He hugged me in a way groan. Sons pretend they've forgotten. When he pulled back, his eyes flicked to my jacket. "You still got it." I tapped the envelope. "I'd staple it to my heart if that wouldn't ruin both, Mom." He asked. "She'll be here," I said. "She loves drama." He snorted and tried to swallow it, then failed. "I have to line up," he said. "But Dad, thanks for the buses, for everything that made this ridiculous go," I said, because I understood that sometimes love means letting the stage swallow someone whole, and trusting it will spit them out changed but unbroken. He went. I watched him disappear into a line of black gowns that looked like a river of comers, each one pausing before the next clause of their lives. My phone pulsed again. Another message from Maya. "Maya, I'm publishing in 5. I blurred your face." I didn't blur his words. I watched the screen like it could teach me a new way to breathe. I thought of last night, of marble and lilies, of McKenna's freckles, of the cloth in my pocket, still damp with breath I had been told to weaponize. I thought of the room's laughter, how it had sounded like success eating its own tail. I thought of Leah telling me we count better. I tapped the link. A headline opened, clean and surgical. "Billionaire publicly humiliates driver at gala. Be expensive or be invisible," he says under it. A still image, my hands on the marble, the shoe a black moon, his hand hovering above. My face like a small god deciding if he believes in mercy. The angle was elegant and unforgiving. The caption, "Witnesses say it was a performance." The man on the floor says, "I was hired to be invisible." I looked up at the stage where the dean was clearing his throat. I looked back down. The article scrolled without my permission. It was not about me. It was about a city that had learned to clap for the wrong things. It was about a man who believed value could be measured by reflection. It was about the room and what the room made people dot at the bottom. A line in italics, "If you know this driver, or you are him, you can contact me here." A phone number, a name, Maya Chen. "Ladies and gentlemen," the dean said into the morning, "today is not about where you come from. It is about where you insist on going." I put the phone back in my pocket. I placed one hand over the envelope like a pledge. I waited for my son's name to be called, for the small thunder of his steps across a stage that owed him nothing and would give him everything he was willing to take with grace. Behind me, somewhere in the city, phones began to ring in offices, where doors do not open themselves, and somewhere else. A man in a perfect suit looked at a screen and felt perhaps for the first time in years the air of a room that was no longer applauding. Phones began to sing. The city said my name without knowing it. By noon, strangers had opinions about a man they would never meet. The dean called the first graduates in alphabetical order. The morning light turned mortarboards into small satellites. I kept one hand inside my jacket, fingers pressed to the envelope like it could keep time steady. Leah arrived halfway through, breathing carefully, scarf pinned exactly. The look on her face equal parts victory and weather report. "You made it," I whispered, squeezing her fingers. "Bus drivers are the unsung tenors of this world," she said, lowering herself into the chair. "Where are we?" "L," I said. "We'll catch A twice." She glanced at me. "Your eyes are on your pocket." "Maya published," I said. Leah nodded like she already knew. "Because she did. And it's everywhere," I said, showing her the headline, the blur, the quote that did not belong to me, but now followed me like a stray dog. "I was hired to be invisible." Leah read fast. "She always has." She wrote about the room. She said softly, "Not just the man." The dean's microphone hummed. A seagull argued with the wind above us. The names rolled on. I watched for our name the way you watch for storms on a map, hoping for the right kind. "Do you want me to call her?" Leah asked. "I want to be here," I said. "And I want to not be here. I think that's allowed." "It is," she said. "We count better." My phone vibrated again. Unknown numbers had discovered me like the flu discovers winter. Unknown, Mr. Tran. "I'm with Channel 8. We'd be honored to known. Can you comment on a known? Do you feel exploited by a known? Are you seeking damages?" I turned the phone face down on my knee. 2 rows ahead, a man in a blue suit looked at me, then at his phone, then back at me with the expression people get when they recognize something important, but don't know if they're allowed to say so. A hush touched the crowd. The dean cleared his throat. "Adam Tran," he said, and there it was. The syllables I had rehearsed in my head during long reads and longer nights. I stood without meaning to. Leah's fingers tightened. Adam stepped onto the stage with his chin a fraction higher than usual, as if the angle of his head could rewrite our history. He shook the dean's hand like a person who understood the price of ink. He took his diploma holder. He glanced once toward the bleachers where we sat, and when our eyes met, he smiled a small smile that contained 1,000 overtime shifts and one impossible morning. "Go, Adam." Leah hissed through joy. She tried not to cry. She failed when he stepped down the far side. The dean's voice was already moving on, but the air around us held the shape of his name like a bell-hole sound after the strike. "We should go," Leah said when the ceremonies blurred, when clapping became a single long ribbon. "Before the cameras learn how to spell Tran faster than the graduation program." We met Adam by the chain-link fence where the university tried to hide its power plant with ivy. He hugged his mother first, carefully, like the world needed help not to break her. He smelled like paper and cheap cologne. "You saw?" he asked, eyes bright. "Front row," I said. "Best seats money can't buy." He laughed. Then his face sobered. "Dad, I saw your phone. It's a lot. It's noise," I said. It's not just noise, Leah said gently. It's a storm. And storms water some fields, and they drown others. Adam looked from her to me. Do you want me to punch anyone? He asked. The way sons ask fathers to pretend they are still made of the same metal. Maybe later, Leah said dryly, when we get the hospital bill. We stood there a moment in the kind of silence that stitches days together. Then voices started to gravitate, attention sniffing attention. A student with a press badge asked, "Are you the man from the article?" A woman with a stroller offered Leah her seat. A reporter with glitter in her eyeliner hovered at the gate, trying to be casual about checking her equipment while aiming her casual at me. Maya peered from the wrong direction as if she had been there all along, simply choosing a new angle. She lifted a hand. "Congratulations," she said to Adam first. "I tried to make it in time to hear your name. I was a comma and missed the period." Adam smiled, half bewildered, half proud. Maya turned to me. "We need to talk," she said, quietly, "but not here." She nodded toward the gate, where the glittered reporter had just decided which casual to use. Leah took out her phone and became the general. "Corner diner," she said, to Blocks. "There are pancakes there that will testify in court if asked." We walked. The caps and gowns became regular clothes again as students shed them like old skins. The air felt different. People glanced not with boredom, but with small decisions. I could feel the city rearranging its face. Inside the diner, the coffee smelled sincere. The owner, a man with a belly like a drum and an accent that had never apologized, looked at us and seemed to know something. He pointed to a booth by the window and brought 3 cups without asking what we drank. "On me," he said, as if generosity could be preemptive. "For the boy." "Thank you," Leah said, and made sure he saw her mean it. Maya put her bag on the vinyl beside her and opened a notebook. The phone on the table beside it glowed with a kind of quiet popularity. Notifications arriving, reading themselves, multiplying. "It's moving," she said. "The piece has legs." Someone from inside Blackwell Capital sent me something an hour ago. Security footage from the hotel loading dock. Audio from a staff group chat. It's not flattery. Adam leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It means last night wasn't a solo," Maya said. "It was a reprise." Leah's eyes sharpened. "Pattern, pattern," Maya confirmed. The dock camera caught Blackwell talking to the head of catering like he talks to shoes. And there are messages from mid-level staff about the theater. That's what they call those moments. My piece didn't have that yet when it went up. The update will. "Are you safe?" I asked, surprising myself. Maya smiled, and for a second it made her look young. "I'm annoying to sue," she said. "Facts make excellent armor." My phone buzzed over and over numbers. Offers, questions. One text stood out in the river. "McKenna. Sir, they're an emergency meeting. Board. PR said to say regret if anyone felt, but legal said no. Stock down 8% at open. Down 13 now. Sorry to bother." I typed back before the part of me that avoids involvement could stop me. Evan, you don't need to call me Sir. McKenna. Habit. Also respect. Evan, don't get fired for telling me things. McKenna. Too late. Or soon. Not sure which. I stared at the screen until the words rearranged into care. Leah watched my face watch my phone. Who? She asked. McKenna. I said. The guard. Freckles. Ah, she said. The decent one. The owner brought pancakes that looked like apologies and butter that looked like forgiveness. Adam drowned his in syrup and tried to act like he wasn't starving. We ate like people who had been reminded food is not always guaranteed. Maya's phone hummed. She glanced at it, then at me. They want a statement from you, she said. Everyone does. TV, papers, the kind of blogs that argue with refrigerators. What would I say? I asked. The truth. She said that you did your job, and he made a sport of it, that you're not an ornament, that the room is complicit. Leah dabbed syrup from her lips like an aristocrat of decency. Or, she said, we say nothing. We let the room talk to itself for once. Maya held my eyes. I won't use your name unless you tell me to. I blurred your face. This isn't a sob story. It's a mirror. What happens to mirrors in angry rooms? I asked. They crack, she said. But they cut the right hands. Adam swallowed and looked at me. Dad, you don't owe anyone a performance, he said. Irony not lost on him after yesterday. You owed me buses. You paid. I looked at Leah. Because that is what I do when the world pretends to give choices. She tilted her head. No statements today, she said. Today is for this ridiculous paper, and this sticky table, and the pancakes that will go to heaven. Before we do, Maya nodded without disappointment. I'll update the piece with the new materials, she said, flipping her notebook closed. Your silence speaks in a language lawyers cannot fake. When we stepped back onto the street, even the pigeons seemed to be reading something. Billboards changed with a speed that felt personal. 1 minute a perfume. The next minute a streaming show. Then a financial firm assuring me my future had never looked more curated. A van rolled past with the news radio turned up loud enough to be communal. Sources close to the board. Unacceptable pattern. Leadership values. My phone buzzed again. This time with a name attached. Rita Voss. Mr. Tran. This is Rita from Assembly Logistics. We saw the piece. We have day driver routes available. Company benefits. Decent hours. Interested? I read it twice. The absurdity of the world deciding to be kind when it had just practiced cruelty made me dizzy. Leah read over my shoulder without pretense. Day routes, she said. Benefits. Graduation gift. Adam grinned. We don't take jobs. We don't ask questions about, Leah said. But we call and ask questions. We ducked into the shade of a brick building and called. Rita sounded like she could parallel park a semi in her sleep. It's mostly medical supplies. She said, City Network. We've got a driver retiring and 2 out on leave. I need reliability more than heroics. I'm good at boring, I said. We start at 22 and health kicks in at 30 days, she said. It's not empire money, but it's honest. You can shadow this afternoon if you want. No pressure. I have a few hours, I said. I just my son, graduation, she asked. Tell him the city still needs people who finish things. Come by at 3. If it fits, great. If not, I won't be offended. She texted an address that looked like an industrial alphabet. I thanked her like a man thanks a rope in water. We walked home slow. Our building stoop had been swept by someone who believed in symbolism. Mrs. Alvarez from 3B was watering the stubborn geraniums she treats like argument winners. I saw you on my niece's phone, she said as we passed. Be proud, not of the thing, of the way you held your shoulders. We're practicing, I said. Inside. The hallway smelled like rain on dust. A flyer near the mailboxes announced a tenants' meeting in handwriting, so aggressive it deserved its own parking spot. On our door, someone had taped a note. We got groceries for you. They're in the kitchen. Foresee. I opened the door slower than necessary, as if gratitude required proper entry. There were bags on the chair with receipts folded like peace treaties. Leah sighed in a way that wasn't tired. We count better, she murmured again. And then she sat because her body is an honest instrument. Adam took the cap off and on and off, pretending he was not thrilled by the friction. I'm going to meet some friends, he said. They want pictures of us against the ugly brick wall. Send me one, Leah said. Make sure my scarf knows which side is its good side. When he left, the apartment became a different shape. The television was already telling us things before we asked. We turned it off. Maya texted a link. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. My phone told me in the flicker of words on the lock screen what the world had decided. Update. Pattern. Staff corroborate. The theater. Board convenes. Sponsors reconsider. Leadership responds. The phrases felt like chess moves that had been planned in a different room. Long before my shoe cloth had ever been introduced to marble, a new message arrived. It was shorter and quieter, which made it louder. Blackwell E. Mr. Tran. This is Eliza, Mr. Blackwell's assistant. He would like to speak privately today. There's a settlement we can offer that will make this easier for everyone. It includes an apology. I stared at the word settlement until its letters became furniture. What? Leah asked, watching the color leave my face. He wants to talk, I said. Leah's mouth pressed into a line that argued with geometry. What does that mean? Money, I said. Paper with signatures. Silence. Leah shook her head. Not at the concept of money. We needed that concept as much as we needed air, but at the ugliness attached to it. Did she say apology? She did, I said. I don't know what that word is worth on their letterhead. Ask, Leah said. Make them use their verbs out loud. I called. Eliza answered on the first ring with a professionalism that sounded stitched onto panic. Mr. Tran, thank you for returning my call. We understand this is an extremely difficult situation. For who? I asked, before I could put sugar on it. For everyone, she said. Choosing diplomacy over accuracy. Look, I'm authorized to propose a settlement that acknowledges your experience. It includes remuneration for distress, an offer for reinstatement if desired, and a private apology from Mr. Blackwell. What does private mean? I asked. Does it mean in a room without witnesses, or in the dark where cameras don't learn how to spell? It means not on camera, she said. We would also require a standard confidentiality agreement. An NDA, I said. A receipt for silence. A mutual one, she said quickly. You would be protected as well. How much? I asked. Not because I believed money solved the geometry of dignity, but because numbers are their native language, and I wanted to hear them speak it. 25,000, she said. And I laughed, and it was an ugly sound. That's what he thinks my kneecaps are worth. Mr. Tran, tell him to add 3 zeros. Then call me back, I said, shocking myself with the audacity of imaginary math. Actually, don't. Tell him to read the article again. Silence on her end. The kind that tastes like someone biting down on their own tongue. I'll relay your response, she said, stiff as a flagpole. Relay this to, I said. Public harm requires public language. If he has an apology, he can test it on the air. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Leah touched my wrist, and the tremor transferred to her like electricity deciding to be kind. You did the right thing, she said. I did the only thing I could stand to live with, I said. I don't know if that's the same. We sat with that. Another message. This one from a number that had the confidence to be labeled. Rita Voss. 3 still good. Bring ID. Steel-toe boots if you have them. If not, we'll find some feet that fit. I looked at Leah. Work, I said. Go. She nodded. Bring back ours. At the Assembly Logistics warehouse. The air tasted like cardboard and muscle memory. Rita wore a reflective vest and authority that had been earned on loading docks, and in meetings where men underestimate vests. Here's the route, she said, showing me a tablet. Pharmacies mostly. 1 clinic. You'll sign for narcotics at 2 points. We check boxes twice so nurses don't have to check them thrice. I rode shotgun with a driver named Lester, who talked like a man who had learned English from baseball radios. Rule 1, he said. Don't get cute with alleys. Rule 2, when someone calls you chief, they want you to move faster than physics. Rule 3, smile at the nurse. Who looks meanest? She's the tiredest. We idled at a red light where a billboard across the intersection decided my future was an app. Lester glanced at me. You the guy? He asked, not unkindly. Which guy? I parried. The shoe guy. He said, wincing at his own shorthand. Sorry, my cousin sent me a link. I'm a driver, I said. The rest is weather. He grunted approval. Weather changes. At a pharmacy on 12th. A nurse with eyes like midnight asked for a photo with me. For my sister, she said quickly, embarrassed by her own impulse. She's got a boss who thinks yelling is a leadership style. Tell her we're all just trying not to spill anything, I said, which made her laugh in a way that sounded like relief. Lester raised an eyebrow that admitted we were now delivering something else along with meds. Between stops, my phone narrated the city's temper. Blackwell Capital released a statement that promised a listening tour of its own employees. The board scheduled a press conference for late afternoon. The stock dropped again. A sponsor paused brand partnership activities. A clip from the dock camera leaked and found its natural habitat. McKenna texted once more. McKenna, they're blaming catering. Said the shoe thing was fabricated context. People are madder. I typed back, Evan, you okay? McKenna, for now. If not here, somewhere else. Evan, you'll land. McKenna, you to dot at 3:15. My phone rang with Eliz's number again. I didn't answer. At 3:20, it rang with a number I did not recognize, but that recognized me. Maya. Where are you, Evan? En route. Maya. He's going to speak at 4. They say he'll apologize. Evan, to who? Maya. The community. The board. The mirror. Evan, will it matter? Maya. He thinks it will. He thinks words are furniture he can rearrange and call it a renovation. Evan, I'm delivering antibiotics. Maya. Good. Some words need medicine. By 4. I was back at the warehouse. The smell of tape and sweat and Friday afternoon kind of hope. Rita handed me a paper that said Orientation Monday at the top, like it was a movie title. If you want it, she said. I want it, I said. It felt like buying a small piece of tomorrow. On the television in the break room, a podium waited. Logos assembled themselves like a flock. A man approached. He looked the way wealth looks after being told to apologize. Pressed, thinner, certain the camera will forgive. Thank you for coming, Blackwell said. His voice was the same temperature as last night. I would like to address the conversation. Rita glanced at me. Lester had found chips he wasn't supposed to find. I regret that anyone felt disrespected. Blackwell said. The room's breath hissed. Even on TV, the echo of those words sounded like a door closing on the wrong person's hand. I am committed, he continued, to learning, to engaging, to the feed cut not because the station failed, but because Rita changed the channel with a finger that did not ask permission. She turned it off entirely. She looked at me and shrugged. You already know the ending to that paragraph. Do I? I asked. You do, she said. He's going to try to sell humility wholesale and ship it overnight. The board will look at numbers, not adjectives. They always do. On the way home, the rain returned, softer now, as if the sky was trying out a different tone. I carried a paper in my pocket that started to think of itself as a contract. I slid it next to Adam's program. Paper made friends with paper. I climbed the stairs and measured my breath. I put my hand on the doorknob and heard through the wood, through the years. Through the day, the sound of our apartment being ours. Leah was at the table with a notebook open, adding numbers that refused to stand still. She looked up when I entered. "How was decent work?" "Decent," I said. "It pays in hours and keeps the soul from getting rusty." She nodded, smiled without showing teeth. "How was he on television?" "He regrets feelings," I said. "Not actions." Leah's mouth curved downward with grace. "Then he hasn't learned the language." The intercom buzzed. We both looked at the speaker as if it had spoken our names. Leah arched an eyebrow. "Expecting anyone? Just the electricity bill," I said. I pressed the button. "Yes," a voice came up the stairwell, shaped by money and rain. "It's Daniel Blackwell," it said. "I'm here to apologize." Silence. Sat down on our chairs and crossed its legs. Leah put her hand on mine. It was steady. "This is a building," she said calmly, "not a ballroom." The intercom buzzed again, a little more humble. "Please," the voice said. "Mr. Tran. Evan. Please." I looked at Leah. "Your choice," she said. "We don't sell it. We simply decide where to put it." I went to the window and pulled aside the curtain. On the sidewalk, under the awning we share with pigeons and patience, a man in an expensive coat stood like someone trying to remember how to be small. The coat was wrong for him now. Rain made it honest. Behind him, a black car idled with the insecurity of a dog that used to bite and has been told to sit. He looked up. He saw me. For the first time in all the hours I had known him, Daniel Blackwell did not perform. He lifted his hands. He did not call for security. He did not call for someone to clap. He stepped back, out from under the awning, into the rain. Then he went to his knees. The water flattened his hair and lifted the corners of his apology. The city watched without pretending otherwise. Somewhere, a phone recorded. Somewhere else, a child asked a question about dignity, and a tired parent tried to answer. Leah's hand found my back between my shoulder blades. "Whatever you choose," she said. "We'll choose it together." I pressed the door buzzer. The lock downstairs clicked like a period, and the sentence we had been living turned its face toward the next clause. The lock downstairs clicked like a period at the end of a sentence we hadn't written. Leah squeezed the back of my shirt where fabric remembers hands. "Whatever you choose," she said. "We choose." A minute later, the stairwell filled with the sound of someone who wasn't used to stairs. Expensive shoes tried to learn humility on concrete. When the knock came, it was soft. Men like him always knock softly in poor buildings, as if sound itself might accuse them. I opened the door. Daniel Blackwell was smaller up close without the stage. Rain had slicked his hair flat and taught his coat a lesson it had skipped. His eyes couldn't find a surface to bounce off, so they found the floor. "I'm sorry," he said, breath clouding the hallway. "For what I did, not for what you felt. For what I did." The hallway light hummed. Leah stepped to my side and said nothing, which made the words matter more. I didn't step back to let him in. "This is a building," I said, borrowing Leah's truth. Not a ballroom. He nodded once. A student trying to show he understood the assignment. I don't deserve your time, he said, but I'm asking for it anyway. 2 minutes. Outside, I said. We took the stairs again. Outside, the rain had slowed to a careful conversation. A few neighbors pretended to smoke. A boy on a scooter hovered with the nonchalance of a camera that hasn't decided it is one. Across the street, a woman on her balcony was watering plants that were already watered, which is how cities attend church. Maya was there, of course. She was leaning against our stoop's iron railing, her bag under her arm like a shield. She lifted her phone but didn't point it. Her eyes asked a question I didn't need to answer. Blackwell stepped back into the rain, where kneeling had made him look human. He didn't kneel again. He looked up at our windows, then at the city. I was wrong, he said, not in a general, corporate, weather system way. I, Daniel Blackwell, used a man's work to decorate my power. I humiliated you because I could. I put on a show because it's easier to perform than to listen. I am sorry. A bus braked at the corner, hissing a scent. Somewhere, a siren tried to harmonize. I let the words stand. Then I asked the only question that mattered to me. Why here? He glanced toward the hotel direction like a dog glances at a former yard. Because I made you kneel where I owned the room, he said. It seemed right to come where I own nothing. Leah folded her arms. Against the cold that wasn't weather. You asked for 2 minutes, she said. Use the second one. He nodded. I called my lawyer to ask how to make this go away, he said. She told me a number. I said it out loud, and it sounded like what I've always done, put money between me and what I owe. Then I watched the clip again, and I heard myself say, be expensive or be invisible. I have been expensive for so long that I forgot how to be seen by the right people, for the right things. He swallowed. I can't buy your forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. I am asking what I can do that isn't performance. Maya didn't write. Her pen hovered, waiting to see if we would choose theater or architecture. I looked at Leah. She gave the tiniest of nods that meant, go ahead. Say the thing we say at the table when no one is recording. Public harm, I said, requires public language. If you have an apology, it can't live only in our hallway. And if you want to fix something, you can't fix it with flowers. He stood very still. Tell me. Start with your rooms, I said. End the theater. If staff are joking about a name for what you do, it's not an accident. It's a policy you pretend isn't one. Put it in writing. No public humiliations. Ever. He nodded, almost grateful to have a noun. Second, I said, look at wages. Drivers, kitchen staff, cleaners, people who make rooms look like no one lives in them. If your firm can afford violin bees and champagne walls, it can afford decent floors under the people who clean them. Third, Leah said, stepping in, her voice the temperature of a scalpel. An independent line for complaints that doesn't feed into the lion's mouth. Real protection, not slogans. and someone on your board who doesn't own a yacht. Fourth, I said, because math is comfort, a scholarship fund for workers' kids, not named after you, named after the work. Start it with a number that makes you flinch and then make flinching your annual tradition. He listened the way rich men listen when the bill has arrived with their names on it. And McKenna, I added, surprising even myself with how quickly his freckled face arrived. In my mouth, apologize to him too, not because he wronged you or you wronged him, but because he was in the room where you taught the room how to be. I can do these, he said. Too quickly. You can try, Leah corrected, publicly. No NDA letters for witnesses who speak about culture. If you want confidentiality for settlements, fine. But you don't get secrecy for patterns. Maya's pen finally touched paper. He looked at me. And you? He asked. What do you want? The question was a mirror. I saw the envelope in my jacket. I saw Leah's scarf. I saw Monday's orientation paper sharing pocket space with my son's program like two kinds of future making room for each other. I want to go to work without rehearsing how to be humiliated, I said. I want rooms that don't clap for cruelty. I want my son to live in a city that apologizes with verbs. He nodded as if he had expected me to ask for a number. And somehow this was harder. He began and stopped. He took out his phone, the black rectangle that usually made other people do things. Eliza, he said when it connected, draft a statement. No, don't draft mine. Draft a policy. End the theater. We'll hire an outside firm to set up an independent reporting line and to audit us. Yes, actually independent. And he looked at Leah, then at me. Set aside, he swallowed 20 million for a fund. Scholarships and emergency relief for staff families. Not my name on it. Use the building's address. It's the rooms that owe them. He listened, then, yes, this afternoon. And call security if McKenna gets in trouble for the wrong reasons. It will be my last mistake as CEO. He hung up. His hands were shaking. It looked expensive to shake like that. You could have said those things at your podium, Leah said. He closed his eyes. If I'd said them there and not here, he said, I wouldn't have meant them yet. Maya cleared her throat, not to interrupt, but to remind time it was being watched. You've used your 2 minutes, she said. Anything else needs to earn its keep. He turned toward her as if she had a gavel. You can quote me, he said, each word heavy with the weight of someone who has always controlled the verbs. Use the first person. If I back away, write that to Maya's mouth twitched the closest she got to a smile when work was nearby. I was going to whether you told me I could or not. He looked at me again. This time his eyes held. I am sorry, he said once more. And though the words were not new, their posture was. I heard you, I said. I'll know if you meant it when the rooms change. He nodded, and for a moment I thought he might reach out his hand. But he didn't. Good. Apologies are not handshakes. He turned to go. At the curb, The driver of his car, someone I didn't recognize, opened the door without looking at me. Blackwell stopped with one foot in the sanctuary of leather, then turned back. "Mr. Tran," he said, and his voice broke in the smallest possible way, the way glass does when it finally decides to be honest. "Thank you." I didn't answer. Gratitude is a language I only lend to certain moments. He left. The car's taillights did a last red blink as if punctuation had learned manners. The neighbors resumed their lives with the efficient generosity of people who had given us privacy without moving. The boy on the scooter finally scooted. Maya stayed. "That wasn't theater," she said quietly, "or it was the kind that builds a better stage." Leah exhaled, slow. "We need to sit down," she said. "My body's opinion is arriving." Inside, the apartment had been holding its breath. We let it breathe. Leah eased into her chair. "I set water to boil because rituals save lives." Maya stood by the window and texted at the speed of weather. "I'm filing an update," she said. "No hero edits, just nouns and the facts that marry them." Adam burst through the door like new light. Did he wait? Was that? He looked from our faces to the damp outside to Maya's thumbs. "He came here." "He did," Leah said. "And we didn't let him buy the furniture." Adam's grin was an untrained dog. "Dad, it was a beginning." I said. My phone buzzed. I expected Eliza, or Rita, or a number that wanted me to be either villain or saint. It was McKenna. "McKenna, heard he came to you. I'm still employed, for now. He called me personally, apologized. People cried in HR. It was weird, in a good way, Evan. Weird is progress when normal was bad. McKenna. True. Also, you still got that job lead." I looked at Leah. She nodded before I asked. I texted Rita's number with a short sentence. "He's decent." A minute later, McKenna replied, with a thumbs up that looked younger than he was. Maya's phone chimed. She glanced at it, then showed me the headline she'd just shipped. He apologized on the poor man's sidewalk, then promised to change his rooms. Now the rooms have to answer. "You made it about rooms," I said. "It was always about rooms," she said. "People build them, and then the rooms build us. We ate the soup Leah insists is medicine." Adam read his diploma holder again like it might have grown words since morning. The television, when we allowed it to exist, was explaining to itself how to cover humility without sounding surprised. By evening, the board had announced an external audit with a name long enough to count as intent. The fund we had forced into the world had a landing page with no photos of donors. Applications were opening soon. A statement from Employees Anonymous, and not started with 3 boring bullet points that thrilled me more than any speech. No retaliation, anti-humiliation policy, wage review by quarter's end. Staff were organizing meetings with HR, and without HR, if this was theater, it had a different director. At 8, Rita called. "I don't usually do this," she said, "but does your friend like warehouses?" We need a night supervisor who knows what it feels like to be decent. He's learning, I said. He's got freckles. I like freckles, she said. Sent him Tuesday. After we hung up, Leah lifted an eyebrow. Recruiter now. Rooms, I said. We're changing the casting. We took a walk because days like that build static in the walls. The city had washed itself. It wasn't clean, but it was newly honest. We passed the hotel where 100 nights had taught me how to be invisible. The lobby's glass reflected the street like it was ashamed of last night's guests. Inside, a sign in the foyer printed so fast the ink still had arrogance read, "In support of staff." We asked patrons to treat all workers with respect. It was corny and too late. It also made me unexpectedly want to laugh like a man who's finally hearing a joke in his own language. Back home, the mailbox held to things that didn't know they were obsolete. A past due notice, and a sweepstakes entry telling me I was already a winner. I held them both and felt the odd mercy of paper weight against bone. Tomorrow I would sign forms that gave me hours and health insurance in 30 days. Tomorrow Adam would start a part-time at the campus library cataloging future arguments. Tomorrow Leah would call her doctor and say the word specialist without flinching. Night arrived with its soft labor. I sat at the table and wrote a letter I didn't have to send. Dear Rooms. I wrote because I didn't know where to address it. You taught me to disappear. I am unlearning you. Some of you will refuse. Some of you will change their wallpaper and call it a revolution. Some of you will knock on our doors and ask for 2 minutes and mean it. I will know the difference by the floor under my feet. Leah read it over my shoulder and kissed the place where my neck remembers it is loved. We went to bed. Sleep came without cruelty for the first time in a while. In the morning, sunlight made the window honest. I put on the shirt I had ironed 2 nights ago, the one that had waited for a ceremony, and a different kind of work. Leah adjusted my collar like wives do when the world is watching. Adam held up his phone. Picture, he said, against the ugly brick, for continuity. We posed like a family that had survived a paragraph and was curious about the next one. Maya showed up in the doorway like a plot device who knows her timing. I brought bagels, she said, holding up a bag. Journalism isn't always theft. We ate on the steps. Pigeons argued union rules. The city made its morning noises. Across the street, Mrs. Alvarez watered her geraniums with the satisfaction of a woman whose plants have no interest in being famous. My phone buzzed once more. Eliza. Policy posted. Board approved wording. Independent firm retained. Fund live. He asked me to tell you he's working on verbs. I typed back to words I meant. Good. Nouns. On the corner, a delivery van nosed into a parking spot that required optimism. The driver hopped out and waved. Orientation. He called. Orientation, I said, and stood. Bring the envelope, Leah said, tapping my jacket. Let the paper meet other papers. I did, in my pocket. Adam's program and my offer letter touched edges. Like two generations politely negotiating, we walked toward the warehouse. Maya peeled off to her newsroom, already building the scaffolding of accountability. Adam jogged ahead, pretending he wasn't checking the route on his phone. Leah took my arm. I matched my step to hers because that's how you stay married. To a person and to a city dot at the crosswalk. A man in a suit I recognized only from a distance because rooms follow you hesitated beside us. He looked at my face, looked away, looked back. He cleared his throat. "Sir," he said. And the word wasn't about employment. My daughter works nights. She sent me an article. He stopped. "I'm sorry for the rooms." "Me, too," I said, and the light changed, and we crossed. The warehouse smelled like tape and possibility. Rita handed me a clipboard and a vest that made me visible on purpose. "You ready?" she asked. "I've been ready a while," I said. We started with a tour. Aisles of labeled boxes, maps of routes that looked like veins. A whiteboard where someone had written "check twice, be kind always" in marker that refused to be tired. Lester waved from a forklift like a man who'd won a small prize. McKenna jogged in late with boots he hadn't broken in yet, and the grin of someone who'd been told yes after a life of maybe. "Coffee's free if you don't complain about it," Rita said, "and there's a jar by the time clock for emergencies, no questions, no notes. We call it the room fund." I touched the jar. Bills lay inside like quiet votes. Coins glittered like commas dotted 10. My phone buzzed. A video. Blackwell in a room that looked like a boardroom trying to learn church. He was reading the new policy, not performing it. He stumbled once and didn't edit it out. Behind him stood people without lapel pins. Their faces were careful. Some had been at the gala, some had not. The sign on the wall said "Employees First" without a logo. It was corny. It was also new. I put the phone away and picked up a box that weighed what my back could carry. Lester pointed toward a waiting van. "First run," he said. I climbed in. The seat was torn a little where another life had left. I buckled the belt that believes in consequences. Through the windshield. The city lifted its eyebrows like it always does and said, "Well, let's go." I told the dashboard. It didn't need convincing. At the first stop, a nurse with midnight eyes signed for antibiotics and handed me a paper cup of coffee. That had been a rumor earlier. "On the house," she said. "For the rooms you're fixing I'll never see." "At least we can count them," I said. "Count better," she corrected, smiling the way people do when it's safe to be tender. The day moved. Boxes became signatures. Signatures became relief in places with too few nouns. In the mirrors of storefronts, I saw a man in a reflective vest who had made peace with not reflecting anyone but himself. On the way back, a bus pulled alongside us. Through the window, a young man in a cap was showing his father something on his phone. The father laughed and put his arm around the boy's shoulders. The bus surged ahead, then slowed at the light. so we shared a moment at the same red. The boy lifted his phone, pointed, waved. I waved back. The light turned green. The city resumed. When I finished the shift, I walked home with the kind of tired that keeps you at the stoop. Leah was waiting with her scarf loose and relief on her face like a sunset. Adam sat on the steps with a notebook open, pretending to draw floor plans of buildings he might one day walk into and change. "How was it?" Leah asked. "Honest," I said. "And the coffee was free on purpose." Maya texted a link to her final update, then uncharacteristically added a line that was not for publication. "Sometimes a story is a door. Good job not letting yours be a mirror." We went upstairs. The apartment had learned a new shape. On the table, under the jar of coins we keep for laundry, Leah had placed a small sign she'd printed on our sputtering inkjet: "Nitrogen monoxide theater in this room." I laughed. Then I cried the way men do when the room lets them. That night, when the city undressed and put itself in drawers, I stood at the window and watched our reflection, and the street beyond it occupied the same glass. I thought about the ballroom, the marble, the shoe. I thought about the sidewalk, the rain, the apology. I thought about rooms and what they make of us, and what we make of them if we're careful. There was a knock-soft, neighborly Mrs. Alvarez held out a plate of cookies with the authority of a woman whose recipes solve disputes. "I heard you fixed something," she said. "We're fixing," I said. "Verbs." She nodded, as if to say, "Good." Nouns get lonely. After she left, Leah leaned her head on my shoulder. "Count," she said. I did, out loud. 3 of us. 1 apartment. 2 jobs. 1 fund we forced. 1 guard with freckles who starts Tuesday. 1 journalist who knows where to put adjectives. 1 apology that might grow up into policy. Many rooms. I paused. "Enough, enough," she echoed. In the dark, the city kept counting sirens, footsteps, heartbeats, none of it exact, all of it true. Somewhere downtown, a boardroom tried on a new tone. Somewhere uptown, a nurse signed for a box labeled carefully. Somewhere in a dorm room, a boy with a new diploma Googled scholarships with a name that wasn't a man. And here, in a building that had learned to be a better room, a door closed us in gently. We slept. We did not disappear. In the morning, we would go back to work. And the rooms would answer.